That puffy face you sometimes catch in the mirror first thing in the morning, with the heavy eyes, the soft jawline, and the cheeks that look a little waterlogged, there's a real chance it has nothing to do with your age and nothing to do with your weight. Same story with stiff, aching shoulders and a neck that never quite lets go. Here's something most people are never told. Your body comes built with several pumps, and their whole job is to keep fluid from pooling in your face and neck. When those pumps are running, you look fresh and your shoulders feel light. When one small muscle sitting on top of your shoulder locks up, it quietly presses those pumps shut, and the fluid has nowhere left to drain. And here's the part that should make you want to stick around. You can switch those pumps back on yourself at home in about 10 to 15 minutes using nothing but your own 2 hands. No clinic, no machines, no injections. Let me show you exactly how this works and why it actually holds up. Quick thing before we get into it, if clear, honest health info is what you're after, subscribe and tap like, because that's what carries this channel toward 300,000. Checklists and extra posts go up on my Telegram channel and the QR codes on your screen right now. Let me start with what this actually feels like, because you've probably been living with it for so long that it just blends into your day. You wake up and your face looks a size bigger than it did the night before. Your eyes seem smaller, your cheeks feel full, and the clean edge of your jaw has gone a little soft. By mid-morning at your desk, your shoulders feel like they're carved out of stone, and by the afternoon, there's a dull, dragging ache across the back of your neck that no amount of shifting in your chair seems to fix. You roll your shoulders, you stretch, maybe you book a massage, and for a day or two, it eases. Then it all comes back. Most people just decide this is what getting older feels like. It isn't. Here's the real reason any of this happens, because once you see it, everything else falls into place. Your face puffs up, your shoulders ache, and your neck stays tight for one underlying reason. The drainage out of your head and neck has slowed down. 2 systems handle that drainage. There's your veins, which carry used blood back toward the heart, and your lymphatic system, which clears fluid and waste out of your tissues. When either one backs up, fluid stalls in the soft tissue of your face and neck. And here's the idea to hold on to for the whole video. Until that drainage gets moving again, no cream, no face massage, and no expensive treatment is going to give you a result that lasts. You'll be wiping away the symptom while the cause sits there untouched. So let me walk you through the plumbing, and I'll keep it simple. No Latin, no diagrams. Blood arrives in your face and neck through arteries. An artery is just a vessel that delivers blood to the tissue, carrying the oxygen, the fuel, and the raw materials your cells need. One artery, one delivery pipe. But the return trip is built differently. Each of those arteries travels with 2 partner veins running right alongside it. So one vessel brings blood in and 2 carry it back out. On paper, that sounds like a generous safety margin, double the drainage capacity. But these return veins have one important quirk. Their walls are extremely thin, paper thin. And that means the moment any outside pressure presses on them, they flatten, and the drainage through them stops cold. Hold that thought, because in a second you'll see exactly what does the pressing, and it's the same thing the whole time. Meet the muscle at the center of this whole story, the trapezius. It's a broad, flat sheet of muscle that covers the back of your neck and the tops of your shoulders, running from the base of your skull all the way down to the middle of your back. It holds your shoulders in place, it helps hold your head up, and it gets involved every single time you move your arms. And in the overwhelming majority of people, that muscle is sitting in a state of chronic spasm. Now, spasm might make you picture a sudden, sharp cramp, but that's not what this is. This is a low, constant background tension that the muscle holds for months, even years, without ever fully letting go. It builds up so slowly that you stop noticing it. You just call it my shoulders and move on with your life. Where does that tension come from? From ordinary daily life. Sitting for hours, working at a computer, looking down at a phone with your head dropped forward, and stress, which is a big one, because when you're under pressure, you reflexively hoist your shoulders up toward your ears and tighten them without ever realizing you're doing it. That's an ancient protective reflex hardwired into all of us. A frightened animal pulls its head down into its shoulders to guard its neck. You do the exact same thing, except instead of doing it for a few seconds of real danger, you do it all day, every working day, while you answer emails and sit in traffic. Over the years, the trapezius settles into what's called hypertonus, which simply means too much tension, a muscle stuck in a clenched state it was never meant to hold. And that clenched muscle starts pressing down on the very thin-walled veins we just talked about, the ones draining your face and neck. From there, the chain of events is straightforward. The drainage gets pinched, fluid stops moving out, it pools in the tissue, your face puffs, and it's usually worst in the morning because while you sleep lying flat, gravity isn't helping that backed up fluid escape the way it does when you're upright, so it settles overnight. Your eyes look narrow, your cheeks look soft and full, the clean line of your jaw blurs, and none of it is coming from your age or a few extra pounds. It's plain fluid congestion from a muscle that won't release. But the pinched veins are only half of it. The second problem is your lymphatic system grinding to a halt. So let me explain what lymph even is, because most people have never had this spelled out. Lymph is a clear fluid that runs through your tissues, collecting the leftovers of daily life. That's cellular waste, byproducts of normal metabolism, and immune cells doing their patrol. And it carries all of it off to be filtered through small stations called lymph nodes. Think of the lymph nodes as cleaning checkpoints. The ones in your neck and just under your collarbone are the first checkpoints for everything draining down from your head and face. When the trapezius is clamped down, lymph can't flow freely toward those checkpoints, so it stalls. The tissue starts to feel soft, doughy, and water heavy. There's even a word for it, pasty, meaning swollen and spongy to the touch. This is where that second chin comes from, the soft fullness over the tops of your shoulders and the heavy dragging feeling in your neck. It isn't fat in the way most people assume. A lot of it is simply trapped fluid that lost its exit. Now here's a mechanism almost nobody knows about, and it's a genuinely elegant one. Your chest actually helps pump fluid out of your neck just by breathing. Every time you breathe in, your chest expands, and that expansion creates a kind of vacuum inside the chest cavity, like pulling back the plunger on a pump. That gentle suction literally draws used blood and lymph downward, out of your head and neck, and into the main circulation heading back toward your heart. And your heart is pulling too, adding its own steady draw from below. So step back and look at what nature actually built here. There's 2 return veins instead of 1, a breathing chest that suctions fluid downward, and a heart pumping behind all of it. That's a system with backup stacked on top of backup, all designed for one purpose, so that you don't swell. And the whole thing gets choked by one tight muscle sitting across the top of your shoulder. Read that twice. One muscle undoes all of it. Let me talk about the pain itself, because the same problem explains those aching shoulders. When the trapezius stays clenched, it can't get a proper blood supply. Remember, the vessels feeding it are squeezed shut. A muscle starved of oxygen starts producing metabolic waste, including lactic acid. And because the blood flow that would normally flush that waste away has slowed to a crawl, it builds up and lingers in the tissue. That buildup irritates the nerve endings woven through the muscle, and you feel it as a dull, nagging, tired ache across your shoulders and neck. The kind that's just always sort of there in the background. Sometimes it climbs into a headache because the trapezius anchors directly onto the base of your skull and tugs on it when it's tight. Sometimes it shows up as a deep ache between the shoulder blades. And sometimes you get numbness or pins and needles running down your arms because a chronically tight muscle in that region can start to crowd the nerve pathways that travel toward your hands. Here's the frustrating part. A lot of people live with all of this for years and just assume it's normal wear and tear. They get told it's arthritis in the neck or some general cervical spine issue, and they're handed pain relievers, muscle relaxers, maybe a round of physical therapy. And those things can genuinely take the edge off for a while, so I'm not knocking them. But the original driver, that long-standing, clamped down trapezius, is still right where it was the whole time. Because hardly anyone ever gets shown how to work on that muscle directly on their own. That's exactly the gap I want to close today. There's a pattern that turns up in primary care far more often than you'd think. Take someone like Linda. She's in her early 50s, has a desk job, and comes in describing a puffy face every morning, shoulders that feel like concrete by lunchtime, and a neck that aches no matter how she sleeps. Creams don't touch the puffiness. Massages help for a day or two, then it all creeps back. On paper, nothing's wrong with her, but the moment you look at the tension sitting in her upper shoulders, the whole picture explains itself. That's not a rare case. That's an ordinary Tuesday. Now, here's the technique itself. I'm going to walk you through it step by step so you understand the mechanics behind every move. And because this is hands-on work right next to your neck, it's genuinely worth running past your own doctor first, especially if you've ever had neck problems, circulation issues, or any kind of vascular condition. With that said, let me explain how it works. The whole method runs on one simple idea: a hydrodynamic pump. Picture an old blacksmith's bellows, the kind you squeeze to blow air onto a fire. Squeeze it and the air gets forced out one end. Let it open and it fills back up with fresh air. Your muscle tissue can be worked the exact same way. A rhythmic squeeze creates pressure that pushes stagnant blood and lymph out of the congested zone. The release lets the tissue refill with fresh blood. Repeat that cycle over and over and you've got a pump running at full power, actively driving fluid out of the top of your shoulder. People often call this whole sequence a centrifuge, and you'll see exactly why in one of the steps coming up. The method has 4 steps and the order matters because each one prepares the tissue for the next. The first step is compression, and you can think of it as warming the tissue up. You pinch up a fold of tissue over the top of your shoulder, right in the middle, like you're grabbing it with a clothespin. Then you give it a series of squeezes, somewhere around 8 to 10 of them. Each squeeze holds for about 3 to 5 seconds, with firm, steady pressure where you can really feel the tissue being compressed, then about 1 second of release before the next one. A moderate amount of discomfort here is completely fine. Not sharp, not unbearable, but definitely noticeable. And that discomfort actually works as a built-in gauge. If pain hits you instantly and feels intense, you've grabbed too hard, so ease off the grip. If it builds slowly and stays dull, that's exactly right. That's the stagnant waist starting to shift and the tissue waking up. As you go, you'll notice something interesting. With each squeeze, the discomfort fades a little. That's not random or in your head. There's a well-known effect at work here called hyposensitization, which just means your nerve endings turn down their own sensitivity when they get the same mild signal over and over. The receptors essentially get used to the input and stop shouting at every touch. The practical payoff is that the next time you do this, you'll be able to work a little deeper with almost no discomfort at all. It's a familiar thing in hands-on body work, and here it's working entirely in your favor. The second step is stretching the tissue in every direction. Keeping your grip on that fold, you start pulling it around. First, straight up toward your ear until you feel the tension, then out to the side, then down, then forward. After that, you start drawing slow, full circles with it, tugging the tissue as far as the grip will allow in every direction. The point of this is to loosen up the muscle fibers and break apart what are called adhesions, which are tiny connective tissue stickers that form inside a muscle that's been tense for a long time and quietly prevent it from relaxing the way it should. 7 to 10 full circles is plenty. At first, that fold is going to keep slipping out of your fingers. Don't let it throw you, just re-grab and keep going. If your hands get tired, you've got a couple of easy options. You can lift the shoulder you're working on slightly, which takes some of the load off your fingers. Or you can sit down, plant your elbows on a table, and lean forward, which brings your shoulder up toward your hands instead of forcing your hands to reach down. You can even do this lying down on your side or on your stomach propped up on your elbows. That last position is especially easy if your hands aren't strong or this is your very first attempt. The third step is the one the whole method is named for. Loosen your grip. So you're no longer squeezing into the fold, just holding it lightly from the outside. Then you start rotating the tissue in small circles, slowly at first and gradually speed up. Faster, then faster still. Speed genuinely matters here because the quicker you spin the tissue, the stronger the outward force you create inside it. And that force physically separates the muscle fiber from the fluid that's been trapped inside it. Done right, the rotation turns into a brisk vibration, a shaking, with the whole surrounding area buzzing under your hand. You keep going until the fold under your fingers feels like it's gotten smaller and softer, almost like it deflated a little. That's the moment the fluid has actually moved out of the tissue, and you can feel it happen. Now, a serious safety point on this step, so make a mental note. Never do this on both shoulders at the same time with full squeezing pressure. If you clamp down hard on both sides of the trapezius at once, it can trigger a symmetrical reflex that sends pain shooting straight up into your head, into your temples, your forehead, behind your eyes, and sometimes even a foggy, swimmy, lightheaded feeling. So the rule is dead simple. Do one side completely, all 4 steps, then switch to the other side. If you really want to work both sides together, the only thing that's safe is light shaking, which is the 3rd step, with no pressure and no squeezing at all. That's gentle and it still drains nicely. There's also a nice combination move hidden inside this step. While you're holding the fold and vibrating it, you can slowly draw it upward toward your ear at the same time. Hold that stretch for a beat, then lower it back down as if you're laying the muscle gently back into place. Pairing the vibration with that lengthwise stretch creates an extra pump. You've got the spinning force on one hand and a mechanical stretch on the vessel bed on the other. The combined effect is noticeably stronger than either move done on its own. The 4th and final step is drainage, and skipping it is the single biggest mistake you can make. You stroke firmly along the area you've been working, going from the neck outward toward the shoulder, top to bottom, steering the fluid toward the lymph nodes tucked into the little hollow just above your collarbone. Those are the drop-off stations where lymph from your neck, your face, and the back of your head all collects. The idea here isn't a light pet. It's to squeeze the fluid along the way you'd wring out a wet cloth. And you can do it right through your clothing and it works just as well. Here's why this step is non-negotiable. Without it, all the fluid you just shook loose simply resettles in the same area and the whole effect turns out to be temporary. The drainage stroke is what actually carries that fluid off into the lymphatic system to be cleared out. And when people actually go and measure these drainage strokes, the tissue can shrink noticeably in just a couple of minutes of stroking alone, with no other technique involved. People with soft, water-heavy swelling tend to see it fastest. If your shoulder tissue is denser and more muscular, it'll take more time and more sessions, but the change still comes. Let me clear up the questions that come up most often. Can you do this every day? Yes, because it's not a damaging technique. Done correctly, you're not injuring tissue, you're draining it. And daily work just gets you there faster. What if your shoulder is sore the next day? That's a normal reaction in the early sessions, a bit like the soreness you feel after a new workout, since the tissue just isn't used to being worked yet. When that happens, skip the squeezing for the day, but the light shaking from the 3rd step is still fine and even helpful because it keeps the blood moving and clears things out faster so the soreness passes sooner. What if your hands are weak and you can't really hold the grip? Work lying down on your side or on your stomach on your elbows, where the shoulder relaxes and comes to you so you barely need any hand strength at all. Shake your hands out between steps. You can even start with the finishing stroke as a warm-up, since a minute of stroking softens the tissue and makes that first grip easier. What about swelling right above the collarbone? Is it safe to work there? It's not just safe, it's the target. That's exactly the zone you want to pump because you're stimulating those lymph nodes directly. And can one of those vibrating massage guns replace this? Partly. A powerful percussion massager with a large head can stand in for the 3rd step, the vibration part, but the key words are powerful and large head. A small, weak attachment won't reach deep enough to do anything useful. And nothing replaces the first 2 steps, the squeezing and the directional stretching, because those depend on you physically grabbing the muscle fiber and working it with your hands. That's a completely different kind of contact. If you're doing this for someone else, like a partner, a parent, or your kid, you only need the 3rd and 4th steps. Stand behind them, take the top of the trapezius in a light grip, and gently shake it. No pressing, no squeezing, just the vibration, followed by the smoothing stroke toward the collarbone. That's enough to lift the fatigue and give them real, noticeable relief. The one rule to remember is don't clamp both sides at once, because of that same referred head pain we just talked about. When you finish one side, stop and compare the 2 before you move on. The side you just worked will feel noticeably softer, warmer, and lighter. and the soft mound on top of that shoulder will sit visibly lower than the other one. That's not just a feeling, it's a real change in the volume of the tissue, and you can actually see it in the mirror. Then you move to the other side and run the entire sequence again from the top. Now let me connect this straight back to your face, because I know that's why a lot of you are here in the first place, with the puffy outline, the heaviness under the eyes, and the soft second chin. Here's the key thing to understand. Everything you do to your trapezius and the top of your shoulder feeds directly into how your face looks. This isn't a beauty trick, it's physiology. You're freeing up the veins and lymph vessels of your neck, and once those are open, fluid finally drains away from your face the way it's supposed to. The result is less puffiness, a sharper jawline, and a fresher look, without injections, without machines, and without a single appointment. It's just your own normal drainage coming back online. And it isn't a one-time thing either. With regular practice, around 10 to 15 minutes a day, the changes stack up and start to hold. Here's another pattern that shows up in everyday records more often than people realize. Picture someone like Carol. She's in her late 40s, mostly focused on her face, and convinced the morning puffiness was just aging catching up with her. She'd looked at creams, even priced out cosmetic procedures. Nobody had ever connected it to her shoulders. Once she started spending a few minutes each evening freeing up that tension in her upper shoulders and drainage in her neck, the morning puffiness eased off and her face looked clearer and more rested. Same face, same age, just fluid that was finally allowed to move. There's one more piece worth adding, and it's about your posture. A chronically tight trapezius and sluggish neck drainage almost never travel alone. They usually come paired with posture that's drifted out of place, with shoulders rolled forward and down and the head pushed out ahead of the body. And that forward head position loads the trapezius constantly, because now the muscle has to hold up a head that's hanging out in front of you instead of balanced neatly on top of your spine. Your head weighs somewhere around 10 to 12 pounds. Imagine holding a 10-pound weight out at arm's length all day long. That's essentially the job your trapezius is doing every minute your posture slips. So this work isn't only about puffiness. It's about freeing a muscle from years of piled up tension it was never built to carry in the first place. And this is why a professional shoulder massage tends to help for a little while and then fades out. It's not that the massage is useless, it genuinely relaxes the muscle. The trouble is the cause is still in play the whole time. The therapist loosens everything up, it stays loose for a day or two, and then you sit right back down at the same desk in the same posture with the same shoulder hiked up and the same phone in the same hand, and within a couple of days, you're right back where you started. Doing this yourself completely changes that math. You can do it every single day. You're not waiting on anyone's schedule or budget. You feel your own muscle directly and you adjust the pressure to your own body in real time. And over time, you'll actually start to catch a spasm right as it begins and ease it out before it ever has the chance to build up. Here's something genuinely worth knowing, and it ties directly to age. After about 45, the trapezius gets noticeably worse at recovering from a spasm on its own. The reason is partly that the fascia, which is the connective tissue wrapping around the muscle, loses some of its natural stretch over the years, and partly that lymph drainage simply slows down with age. Put plainly, a tightness that used to clear up on its own in a day when you were 30 can stick around for weeks in your 50s without some hands-on help. So I'm curious, how old are you? Drop it in the comments because it genuinely shapes how stubborn this tends to be, and it helps me tailor what I cover to the age group that's actually watching. So here's the clear, practical version of all of this, if you want to put it to use. The basic sequence on each shoulder goes like this. You pinch up the fold right in the middle of the top of your shoulder and give it 8 to 10 firm squeezes of about 3 to 5 seconds each with a 1-second pause between them. And moderate discomfort is okay. Then, holding that fold, you stretch it as far as it'll go in every direction, up, to the side, down, and forward, and draw 7 to 10 big, slow circles with it. Next, you lighten your grip and start rotating the tissue, speeding up into a brisk shaking until the fold feels softer and smaller under your fingers. Then you smooth the whole area firmly from your neck out toward your shoulder, pushing the fluid toward the lymph nodes above your collarbone. And finally, you repeat the entire thing on the other side. Many people find that 10 to 15 minutes a day is enough. And if your shoulders are sore in those first few days, just stick to the gentle shaking with no squeezing. That soreness usually clears in 2 to 3 days, and after that, the work goes deeper and feels better. Give it 2 weeks of steady practice, and then compare how your shoulders feel and how your face looks. Most people are genuinely surprised. And remember, everything here is general information to help you understand your own body, not a personalized treatment plan. So before you make this a regular habit, run it by someone who knows your full health picture and can tell you whether it's the right move for you. If any of this helped, take a second to subscribe and leave a like, because that's what keeps this channel moving toward 300,000. Want the step-by-step checklist to keep handy? It's waiting on my Telegram channel. Just scan the QR code on your screen.